Hi, good evening. My name is Siddharth Chandrasekharan and I go by Sid if that's easier. I'm a junior at the college. I study computer science and philosophy. This is my third time TFing computer science E75. I took the freshman intro class with David and then started TFing 75. So welcome to section. I'm really excited to be here. And I think today's section is going to be mostly a recap of HTML. And then a little bit of PHP that you've seen in lecture already. Before we get started, some logistics. So section will be taped, the section will happen in One Story Street, room 302, every week from 6:30 to 7:30 on Thursdays. And people from home, for the distant viewers, feel free to email me after section or even possibly during section if you have any questions, and I'm happy to go over them with you. Office hours are to be decided. We're still trying to figure out what is the best time. So look out for an email with when Alex, one of the other TFs, and I are available. There are 4 projects to this course. I think it'll be useful to go over the grading scheme for these 4 projects before we get started, so you sort of know what to expect. The first one is mostly setting up. The second one, the 4 are spread out over the semester. The grading scheme involves basically three parts. Correctness, design, and style. So each of these are a score out of 5. Correctness is, of course, if your code performs correctly. If you've taken a look, have you taken a look at Project Zero specs yet? Okay, so there are a list of specifications on the project PDF. So correctness is basically making sure that you sort of tick off each one of them on the specification. Design is not the prettiness of the page. It's not how much CSS you've used. It's not how beautiful it is, but in fact how well designed your code is. Making sure that your code a code flow makes sense. It's not distorted. And the third one is style. Style, again, does not refer to design or the beauty of the page, but in fact just the style of your code. So good comments and pretty printed, so you're indenting your code right. We'll go over some of that stuff today, but in general, just making sure your code looks pretty. While talking about comments, if you've seen these, there's a list of comments that people write. A list of comments that people have come across. So the idea is to avoid these kind of comments, keep your comments clean, keep your comments specify what exactly you do. There's a page, I can put this up on the resources page, and you can take a look at it whenever. So the other resources available are help@cs75.net. I'm going to put this up here. Between David, the 4 TFs, and we're almost always online. So feel free to email help@cs75 with any questions you have about logistics and the content. If you're not sure what a project specification means, email us and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. The other resource that's available is the Google group, CS75 Discuss. If you're not on it, you should email one of us and we can put you on it, or you can just join it. It's called CS75. CS75. You should just be able to find this on the Google Groups page, and this is a class-wide email list. So anybody who's in the class can sign up. Feel free to get in touch with the class as well, so that you'll have a faster turnaround time, and other people can learn from your questions. Cool. So I'm going to pull up the specification for Project Zero. So this section will be mostly examples to reinforce some of the concepts that you've already seen in lecture, as well as to sort of go through the projects and help you out with specific issues. So if you've seen this already, the first part is, of course, buying yourself a domain that you will work with for the rest of the semester. So the most common registrar that people use is GoDaddy.com. And you can pick a registrar. I think there's a thread on the discuss list about codes that you can use for discounts. So buy a domain, and once you're done, you have to create what is called a CNAME record. I'll go into what it is briefly, but before that, the list of instructions for how exactly to do this, specifically with GoDaddy, as well as other registrars, is available in the PDF. So if you pull it up, there's a link to a set of instructions that you can use. So let's talk a little bit about CNAMEs and A records, and then come back to sort of the logistics of this project. So when I think David demoed this in lecture, but when you type google.com, it maps to an IP address. So google.com is merely the alias that we give that IP address because we don't want to remember numbers. CNAMEs are basically maps. So a CNAME record is basically a map of a host name to another host name. An A record is a map of a host name to an IP address. So here, all your websites will be hosted on cloud.cs75.net. And the idea is for you to change the host name of your site, of your domain.tld to cloud.cs75.net per the instructions in the PDF. So this is basically an alias that, so when you look up this host name, it basically redirects you to this site. And since it has the A record of this site set, you can access it. So once you've sort of changed that and have it point to cloud.cs75.net, there's a survey. There's a survey that you can fill out about some general questions to get to know you better, and of course your domain, so that we can actually tell our sites to click to host it. Yeah.
How long will it take from the time that we actually sign up with the registrar until the entry's been propagated?
Sure. So I think migration in general takes about 48 hours. Okay. So if you do this and fill out the survey immediately, within 2, maybe at the most 3 working days, you should be all set. So, any other questions at this point so far? Right, come on. Yeah, within 72 hours, if you've not heard back from us with your username and password, email us so that we can sort of put you on. We can check to make sure things are okay. And of course, the email to get in touch with is help@cs75. Let's see. So let's go through the actual specs of this. What kind of backgrounds do you have? Do you have some HTML background? Sweet. So I think the syllabus prescribes either HTML or some sort of programming language before taking 75. We're going to do a fair bit of HTML today. We'll go over the basics and zip through a few examples so that you can sort of refresh that. But the idea is that you have to construct a very basic site, one that uses CSS, one that has a few links, and I think 3 pages. At least 3 pages that are somehow interconnected interconnected via hyperlinks. And once you do this, you have to check to make sure that it works on multiple browsers. So the issue of why this doesn't work is why this doesn't work across all browsers is basically HTML is a markup language. So markup is basically a set of text of the form. In this case, some tag name, element, and close the tag. So all HTML is of this form. There are additional attributes within the tags, but this is the general structure of HTML. So the problem is each browser interprets this differently. So although there are obviously standards across how to sort of display them, browsers do make changes while they look through this text and write and display the page for the user. This is something we'll keep coming back to, but the idea is to build cross-functional, sort of cross-browser functional websites that work in all of them. Any other questions before we get started? Sweet. So let me open a new shell. OK, so I'm not sure if you have how much command line experience people have, but I'm going to go through some basic functionality, some basic commands that are useful to know. So this is a shell. A shell is basically a command line where you can execute different commands. The most important ones that you probably want to know are make dir. Yes?
Well, where do you get that command?
Oh yeah. OK. Good. Thank you. Sorry about that. So if you have a MacBook, you want to use the terminal app. The terminal app comes with as part of the MacBook installation. If it's not on your dock, It is under the utilities folder in your applications. So once you pull this up, you can, this is basically a command line utility.
What if you have a PC?
If you have a PC, you have to download something called Putty, which I will.
Oh, Putty?
Yeah. Let me just pull that up. So Putty is basically the same as equivalent, except that is specifically for SSH. We'll go over what that is in a second, but Putty is the equivalent of terminal for Windows. So if you have Windows, download Putty. It's a great tool, and it's free, which is really nice. So the general form is some command. So okay,
So
sweet.
at this point, we're logged into the actual server.
No, so right now we just open a brand new shell. You're on your local host. You've not done anything to get to your actual server. So I'm just going to go through some basic functionality before we do. So the first one is a list of all the contents in your directory. That is a command ls that lists all of it. So ls basically lists all of it. There are different ways to do it. There is ls, and there are command line arguments. So you can hit lsa for some more information, or lsl, which will list more information about the contents in that directory. A great place to look for any of these commands, and if you're not sure what it does or what are the other command line options that it supports, is called man. So man any command will open up this page that basically describes that is the actual manual for these commands. So it will, for instance, like so display extended attribute keys, or like the number of you can have it display the number of elements in your directory, all through various command line options. So if you're not sure what exactly something does, you can always hit man and that command.
That's for Unix systems.
Yes, that's for Unix systems.
Is that true once you've done the Putty and?
Yes. Yeah. So well, I just want to go through some basic functionality, and I'll sort of tie it in together so that it makes more sense. The other one, there's just two more that I want to show you. The other one is make dir, which, as its name suggests, makes a directory. So let's make a directory called CS75 section1. Hit enter. It doesn't display anything, but it's done. Now let's check. Let's hit ls, and here's the directory. Oops, here's the directory that we just created. So make dir creates directories, and the other one that I want to show you is now you have created a directory. How do you navigate into it? So cd, let's pull up the man page to. Oops. So these are a list of built-in commands that it lists, and so if you hit cd section cs75 _ section1, basically stands for change directory. So you're moving your directory into that. You're changing your position into that directory. The final one is pwd, which stands for print working directory. That basically prints where you are right now. So if you hit pwd, it says here's the directory that you're in. So let's try creating another directory here. Let's call it foo. So now we're in foo. I'm going to pwd. So we're right now in foo, and I want to navigate back to CS75 section1. So there are four sort of arguments. I'm going to erase this part about CNAME records and A records. There are four. Let's do three actually. So this always stands for the current directory. So in any directory, if you type cd dot, it basically states and it stays in the same directory. So this refers to the same directory. So you're basically saying change directory to the current directory, so it does not move. The double dot refers to the previous parent directory. Which in this case is cs75 _ section1. The last, I'm sorry, my bad. And the last one is the tilde, which stands for the home directory, which is the very beginning. So if you look at this, it says home / cs75 section1 / foo. So cd tilde moves you back to the home directory. So let's just try this out. Cd dot dot goes to cs75 section1. Let's print working directory to make sure that's where it is. And cd dot dot again, and we're here. So it goes here. I'm going to cd to my home directory, which is again where I want to be. So these are four or five like very basic Unix commands that are helpful for you to navigate once we figure out how to execute commands on the actual server. Any questions so far? Okay, so let's tie this into sort of how we're going to use it. So we're going to use so we have our local host, and everything that I did right now was on my local computer. So now we want to connect to the your domain. So you created your domain, and we're hosting it for you. You want to be able to access it. So the two things that are most important here are SSH and SFTP. SSH is secure shell. SFTP is secure file transfer protocol. There's another tool that is useful to know, which is SCP, which is secure copy. So all of these, the idea is to connect to network devices. That is, in this case, your local host and the actual server, your domain that it's being hosted on. So the format of SSH is SSH, your username, at your domain. So my domain for the entire course is ohhiworld.com. So when I SSH to my domain, it's you basically SSH to yours, so it'll be your username at your domain name.tld. So it's always at the format SSH followed by your username at your domain.tld. Any questions?
You could use PuTTY to log in there.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what PuTTY is for. So once you open PuTTY, you open a connection to your username at your domain. So once you open this connection, you'll have a shell very similar to the one that I had on localhost and the one I have right here. Now, any commands that you execute here are basically commands on your domain itself. So here now we can use all the commands that we just learned. So ls lists all the files that I have in that directory. So let's hit ll. So it says who owns it, etc. And let's I'm going to make this a little smaller. All right. So here I'm going to cd to my public _HTML directory. So any files that are in your public _HTML directory are the files that are displayed when you go on your domain.com. So when you go on google.com, they have a public _HTML or the equivalent. They could call it something else, but like they have that folder, and in that folder they have different files that are displayed accordingly. Any questions so far? Clear? Okay. In this, the most important, the first file that we care about is called index.something. The reason I say index.something and not index.html is because we're going to have index.phps as well. So when you go on, let's do. So if you go on google.com and google.com/index.html, they're basically the same page. So when you go on google.com and don't specify a page within the public _HTML directory, the file that it automatically displays is the index.html in this case. So here, let's actually just print out let's actually just print out cat as another very useful Unix command that basically spits out whatever is in the file. So in this case, I'm just going to. So I just have a file that says that has like very bad HTML in it, but it exists, and cat just spits whatever is out in the file. So we're going to come back to this and sort of figure out how to write code, how to write HTML, how to set permissions. If you go on the website right now, index.html, it says forbidden. So we'll figure out how to change this, why this is happening, etc. Any questions so far? Great. before we do that, let's take a look at some useful tools with respect to the other two concepts that I mentioned. The first one is SFTP, which is Secure File Transfer Protocol. So there are two ways to get a file on your domain. One is to actually go there and create it yourself, so actually create the file on your host. The other one is to create it locally and sort of move it there. The moving is the Secure File Transfer Protocol. So there are applications for this. For Macs, the one that I like best is Fugu, but there are a bunch, and you can probably figure out you can probably pick any of them, and it should be fine. The other one, so here in this case it's Ojai World, and my username is CHANDRAS. I connect. And keep in mind that like every time you want to connect to these, you have to enter your password. I have SSH keys set up. You can ask me about it later if you want. But it basically like helps you sort of create a key for yourself, so you don't have to write your password every time. But this is my local host. On the left side, this is my local host, and this is my actual host. So there are different folders here. Here's the public underscore. Oops. Here's the public underscore HTML folder. There's the index.html that I was talking about, the one that currently says forbidden. So that is SFTP. SCP basically achieves the same thing, but using the command line. So instead of SCP is basically a layer on top of SFTP. Instead of using a nice GUI like Fugu does, and if you use Windows, the tool that you want to find is Secure CRT. Or a bunch of other tools. If you just Google SFTP free Windows, there are a bunch of tools that can do this for you. FileZilla is another. And if you use any of the sort of IDEs like Dreamweaver, they often come in with built-in support for this. So that's another way to do it. So
I have a secure CRT, I think,
yep.
left over from an earlier course, which I took too long ago to remember what it was or anything. But I just tried it recently, and it asked for a password. I have no idea what the password
right.
is.
So if you register your domain, you create your domain as per the first project's specifications, and host it. Fill out the survey. Have you taken a look at the specs yet?
Now, when you say have I taken a look at
the specs, the Project Zero specs.
Oh,
yes. Yeah. So there's.
I got my domain name, and now I'm waiting for. I'm sorry, I came in late.
No, don't worry about it.
But I got my domain name, and I'm waiting for an email that has some.
Yes, so that will happen over the next like 24 or 48 hours. And once you have that, there will be a username and a password.
Oh.
So in your case, so obviously it'll be a different tool, but it will be your domain .tld, right? So whatever domain you registered, and your username, which will be in that email that we send you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So once you do this, the password is also in the email. So all you have to do.
Understand that the program somehow or other knows my password, even though it's coming from you guys.
So it's a password that we assign to you. It's a randomly assigned password.
Why does the program know what password you assigned to us?
Oh, the program doesn't. So once you hit connect, it will ask for your password.
Oh, it asks for a new password.
Yeah, it'll ask for. So it'll say. So let's say I do this. It will, I guess this doesn't exist, so let's try Google.com, although I obviously don't have an account with them. It should, this is a bad example, but like when you try to connect, it will ask for a password.
Oh, okay.
And you just have to type in the password that we assigned, and then you can change it the moment you sign into your shell.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So SCP is a command line tool. I'm going to try to let you guys figure this out because it's very useful to use the man pages to see how tools work. So if you just hit man SCP and figure out how to transfer files from your local host to your host, it's a good exercise. Any other questions?
Now, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought that's what the SFTP.
Yeah. So
does.
SFTP is a protocol, and this is an application that uses that protocol to transfer it. SCP, on the other hand, is a command line tool. So like we did SSH, good enough? Yeah, so like we did SSH, like we did username at yourdomain.tld, right? SCP is another command line tool that you can use to transfer stuff from your local host to your website.
You mean it's an alternative to SFTP?
Yeah, alternative to using a GUI. alternative GUI is a user interface. So alternative to using an application like Fugu.
Okay.
So this is basically another way to transfer it. It does this exact same thing.
Does that also ask for your password?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it works the exact same way. So you except that everything is through a command line. So you don't sort of have the, so if you
won't see all of the files and all of
the. Yeah, so you won't have.
You just type it on the screen.
Yeah, so for instance here, it's all just a drag and drop thing, right? So I can just drag and drop. Right. Now let's see, I just dragged this file over. Let's see if it exists. ls, oops, let's do ll because where this, this was in my root home directory. So ll, here we go. This is the image that I just moved, that I just dropped over. So you don't have any of the drag and drop sort of ease, but you just use a command line. It sometimes is more useful than having an application. Sweet. So okay. So while we're at that, so while you're developing for any of the projects that you're going to work on, there are, again, like I said, two ways to do this. So one is to work on your machine itself. So SSH to it and make all the files right there. And the other one is to create the files and move them there. So I'm going to talk about one more tool that makes this very useful, makes it very easy to develop locally. It's called XAMPP. So it's XAMPP. So if you actually just Google for XAMPP installation directions, there is a let's see. This is actually a tutorial that one of the TFs from an earlier version of the course wrote. So it basically talks about how to install XAMPP and how to use it. We'll come back into more detail when you really need it for projects 1 through 3. But for now, just keep in mind it's probably useful to look through this and install it right away. Other useful tools. Live HTTP editors. I'm not sure if David demoed this, but it basically is a list. So let's close all of these. Let's open Google. Oops, where's the? OK, so here we go. So here's live HTTP editors. It's open. And it just puts out a bunch of headers that for every request that you make is sent. So it basically tracks all the traffic that goes out from the site and comes in. So all of it that comes into your local host. So it's another useful tool in case you want to see what exactly you're spitting or what exactly you're getting back.
It works with Firefox.
It works with Firefox. That's what I was going to go into.
I'm sorry. Where did that come from? And
so
how he's put it up.
Yeah.
Is that when is that recording an actual visit to a
yeah.
site?
Yeah.
And
so
what's the visit to the site?
So the actual request is made when you go on Google.com, right?
Okay.
So if you take a look at this.
Now, where did you get that?
So yeah, I'm going to go into that in a second. I just want to demo the functionality of the tool. You see all these requests that are being made, like the user agent in Mozilla 5.0. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Oh, sadly I can't apparently, but okay, there we go. So the referrer is google.com. Like there's a cookie being set. So there's all this stuff going on that we ordinarily don't see when you just open a browser window. So it basically sort of lets you take a look under the hood of every request that you make. How you install this tool is to use Firefox, the browser.
Right.
If you go on, so let's actually just go on add-ons. So get add-ons. If you all Firefox browsers come with this. So you basically look for live HTTP. Let's make it bigger, a little bigger again. Live HTTP editors. And I think since I've installed it, it doesn't show up in my results possibly. But yeah, here we go. So when you hit show all results, this is the add-on that you want to install.
Live HTTP editor.
Yeah.
Editors.
Yeah. So it takes you a look, lets you look under the hood. I think David demoed it, so I'm not going to go into it in detail.
Yeah.
But let me close XAMPP. Okay, so we know how to open a shell, like we can SSH to this account, right? But let's say we actually want to create a file, right? We want to edit a file. We want to write some text and just edit it. So let's go to my public_HTML directory. And open index.html. So the command that I just used is called nano. It's the name of a text editor. It's a plain text editor, so it's basically like Word, except that all your commands are done within the shell. So when I open nano, let me make this a little bit smaller so that we can see the 1 second. Oops. Let's,
it looks just like Pico.
yeah, it's exactly like Pico. A lot of the same shortcuts are used. So if you 1 second, please. Let's make this really small, and then there we go. Okay. So if you take a look, this is the actual file. So this works just like a text file. It's just like opening TextPad or Notepad, and you can edit stuff, you can add stuff. So let's actually say, if you have any familiarity with HTML, this should be very clear. It's basically just a title tag along with a body tag. This is very poor style, very poor indentation. So let's fix that. So let's move this down. And now to save it, if you look at the very bottom, it says write out. So you Control O, and it asks for the file name to write. You hit Enter, and it just saved whatever changes I made to the file. Let's go back to the title and change it to from hello. We'll make it Oh Hi World. Once again, Control O to save it, Enter, and the file's been saved. Now let's try to go to my actual page and try to load it. So ohhiworld.com, index.html. This is the error that we saw before. So it says 403 forbidden, which means the file exists. It's not saying that it doesn't exist, but it sounds like it looks like the file does not. The people don't have access to the file. So let's exit this. Exit is Control X, and hit ls. Cool. So let's hit ll now. And if you take a look at index.html right here, this right here it looks pretty complicated, but in fact, it is a list of 9. It's a list of 10 blanks. So let me erase this and try to break this down so that we can figure out why exactly the page is not viewable. So there are 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 10 blanks here. And there's some letters here for each of them. So if you let's actually write out. Let me try to break this down. So this actually is broken down into it that way. So let's take a look at the very next line of that is listed. So it appears to be a directory because of the different color, right? JS, which is right next to it, appears to be a directory. And what is the one difference between that file and index.html? The D. So it makes sense that the very first one is a D to signify that it's a directory. These are permissions. So this, I believe it's U group. So let's actually make this user group and all. Let's write down what exactly this is. So this is RWX, nothing X, nothing X. So this is the current state of the file. Do you have any guess for what R and W stand for?
Read and write.
Yep. So and X?
Execute.
Yep. So for the viewers at home, R and W stand for read and write, and X stands for executable.